Welcome back to Story Deep Dive with Dana and Rachel. We are two book coaches and editors, as well as besties, who discuss books not as readers, but as writers, to draw inspiration from great books with a lot of laughs. And I think we now need to start saying it's a teaspoon of shenanigans.
Maybe more than a teaspoon. I don't know. If I have anything to do with it, it's looking more like a tablespoon.
I was trying to be very generous.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you.
You know what? You're going to want people to know you a hot ass mess from the get-go. You know what I'm saying? Just inch them into our crazy. But we are coming back every few months or so throughout the year. We have a month where we have a bonus conversation where we have 5 weeks in that month that we can discuss. And instead of continuing our original discussion around our selection for the month, which this month was Twisted Love, we pick something different. And this month, I think our discussion is going to be kind of dope. We've talked about it. But we haven't had an isolated episode to sort of just dive into it. So if you are here and you've been here before, welcome back. If you are new, stick around. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm not going to tell y'all what we're going to talk about. I'm going to leave y'all out there. Y'all.
Bury the lead. Yes.
Wait, on the hook. Like, what are they about to talk about? But I guess I will. We're going to talk about, I'll preview it. We're going to talk about comps and your, what are some things to take into consideration when you're selecting your comps, and then also talking about why you want to select comps. And so we're going to have some discussion about that. But first, as always, we like to get a catch up of what's going on. And Rachel, we kind of talked about, tell us a little bit about what you have going on and about your talk that you have coming up.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so we are actually in a similar boat, and I just learned before we started recording that we're giving talks, almost, not quite back-to-back, but they're definitely in the same week. So, first of all, we're wrapping up the year, and holy moly, it is insane, trying to get everything in before the holidays and, wrapping things up, and on top of that, so ProWritingAid, so if you are returning to the podcast, you know that Dana and I both spoke in October for ProWritingAid for their Preptober, which was leading into Novel November, which is their big sort of bridging that gap that NaNoWriMo left. But then also on the hot on the heels of Novel November, they're also doing additional sessions in December, which is sort of what next December. And Dana, you and I both have been invited to speak again for what next December, which is really exciting. So for me, I am going to be speaking on December 8th. I think it's at 11 or 12 Central Time. Be sure to check the schedule and the posts on Instagram. This is my best recollection of the time that I'm speaking. Let me pull it up on my calendar. Here we go. Yes, it's going to be at 12 p.m. Central Time. So that's December 8th. That's a Monday. And my talk is going to be a follow-up on my talk from October. So my talk in October was overarching. It's about drafting in stages and the importance of drafting in stages, focused on the first draft because everyone was preparing for Novel November. So now that everybody will have done Novel November, I'm going to be talking about it's drafting in stages part 2, and it's how to iterate on your drafts. So it's about how to approach a second draft, how to plan for a second draft, what you're looking for in a second draft, and then how you sort of repeat that process towards smaller and smaller problems in iterative drafts after. So once you have your first draft, what in the world do you do with it? How do you approach a second draft? And so just really trying to bring a continuation from our discussion on first draft to cool, you did a first draft. That is a huge, huge accomplishment, but you know that there's more to do. Where do you start, and what do you do with that first draft, and how can you approach it in a way that allows you to improve upon your draft without also getting lost, right? And trying to solve all of your problems at once, which is where something that can hang up writers very, very quickly in revision when it's like, I want to change everything and you're trying to change all of the things all at once. So that is what I will be talking about. I'm really, really excited. Dana, you also have some juicy stuff coming up for your talk in December. So do you want to talk about what you're going to be sharing in December?
Yeah, I'm like you. I think it's the end of the year, so you have both the closing out and then the foreshadowing, right? And like sort of casting the vision for the next year. And so on top of writing deadlines, I honestly just feel like I'm up to look my eyeballs in stuff.
Yeah.
Just like a heap. It's like just a heap of stuff. And when you so much, it's like I just can focus on the very next thing. And which honestly it's honestly been really cool because you can be going through it and you're just like slogging through it. Like you're just trying to get from thing to thing. And then I've been having some really great like aha moments and breakthroughs. And so it makes the process feel like, oh wow, I didn't think about it this way, or reworking some of the things that I'm going to be planning for next year. Been having students submitting topics that they want us to cover for some of our workshops next year.
Sweet.
So that's been great, just sort of having a great like understanding of where people are, what they'd like to see coming. So that's been great. It's been very interesting getting feedback about their thoughts about the summits and everything that I've been participating in.
Ooh.
Listen.
Sounds juicy. Sounds like something I need to ask you off of a recorded line.
Yes, yes, because it is so funny. Because my people know me. Because someone was real quick, I thought you wasn't going to do that anymore, Dana. And I was like, I'm so glad you said it. So having those discussions, and so it's always very informative as someone who is planning and saying yes or no to opportunities, but also thinking about them. And so those have been very great and insightful conversations. And then when it comes to ProWritingAid, yes, I will be speaking in December as well. I think it's been very interesting how they've done their writing sessions this year. Yeah. I did miss their topical ones because I just felt like genre specific ones were always very helpful. But I think this time we just made it so that they just kept their place in your sort of thought process for online events, and then hopefully they come back around to it next year. Because I think they always do a really great job, and so I always like participating in their events. Yeah. I will be doing series that sell, so I'll be talking about series. Yeah, and I mean, I have students that are already like, I'm going just for that because, because it's just, I think it's going to be very good. We had a great time in the last one, which was my plot accordion. Again, I always find that those things are so crazy. I think we had like 400 or 500 people that were live and I was just like, oh my word, which is. So it's always
nothing like when they tell you the numbers and you're like, there are how many? Sorry, I beg your pardon. There are how many people here?
She said like 1,300 people or something at RSVP'd, and I was like, okay, you didn't have to tell me that. But but I always just see it as, listen, I just kick back and have a good time. I don't put a lot of pressure on it, and it's a great time. So we'll be talking about series that sell, and so it will be a little bit of an overflow and a bridge between what I talked about originally, because we were talking about like, how can you prep and prepare yourself to do the actual writing? Based on how much time you have and being still prepared and getting the most from that time. And now what we're going to be thinking about, I always tell my clients, one book is not enough, right? One book is not, you're going to have some people, they blow up. That's the exception, not the rule. And so creating a series so that you can basically plant your readers in a world and really help them to get a better understanding of your brand and where you're taking your writing, it'll just make for a more of an opportunity to have a profitable series. And so we'll be talking about that. And it's on, because you had to pull up your calendar. It's on December 10th out at 2 p.m. Central on December 10th. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Listen, that's gonna be my last hoorah for 2025.
Yeah.
So listen, I'm gonna come with all the heat, all the thunder. I'm gonna be coming in hot because when I close it out,
yes,
oh, your
ma'am.
girl is gonna be happy because I will be. That's my last Zoom call for 2025. Oh yes.
Oh wow. Ooh,
It'll be after the retreat. Everything.
Oh, girl. Oh, okay. Well, I'm a little jealous because I'm going to still have one more week after, and I am just like, help.
Not Dana. Dana will be done. I will have no more one-on-ones. All of my developmental edits for 2025 are done.
Oh, man.
And all of my personal responsible books will be done for 2025. Listen,
I'm gonna be like
you
when
won't
I
be
grow
able to
up.
tell me nothing.
Okay, next year I'm aiming for. Can we wrap it up a week, even a week earlier? I'm gonna be shooting for your schedule because. Oh man, 2 weeks. I'm pumped about 2 weeks off. I'm ready for 2 weeks off. But what if I could make it 2.5 or 3?
My thing was, sometimes you aim for having the full 2 and it bleeds over. And I wanted to take care of the bleed over, so I still had the full 2.
Yes.
Listen.
Oh man, yeah, because then you wind up and you're doing a little bit that Monday and then that Tuesday. And all of a sudden you got a week and a half off and you're like, hey,
it was only
cheated.
a week.
Rude.
And then you got to prepare to go back.
Yes. It's
no.
See, you've learned. This is a woman who's learned the hard way, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm not falling for that one again."
I'm like Iyanla Vanzant, not on my watch. Listen, no, I'm not doing it. I'm like, no. So I've been very, very intentional and being very aware to protect that time and protect that space, because if you don't. Man. So yes, so it will be the last hoorah for 2025. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great topic. And so, yeah, and I feel like I haven't talked about it fully, but I have a feeling that we will do another workshop version of it, in DTW, just because you hear it and then having the ability to implement it and ask questions, because those things go so fast. They go so fast.
Oh, 45 minutes is a shockingly small amount of time. It really
especially if you want to do Q&A.
Yeah, it just flies by, for sure.
And it's just it's like, and then you're trying to get it in so that it's substantive enough that people get something and that it's practical so they know what to do next. But sometimes in that speed, you also don't have the time to let it sort of marinate enough so that the questions that come through, and the questions always are great, don't get me wrong, but I think it's people just be holding stuff over from something else. It'd be questions from everywhere. I'd be like, okay, that's not what we talked about, but whatever. So that's what I have going on, and just looking forward to this last couple of weeks are gonna be
it'll be a whirlwind, but it's gonna be good.
Y'all can't see me if you're listening. Y'all won't see my face. It's just
Scream if you
shocked.
want to go faster.
Listen, you always say that. I was screaming because I wanted to stop. Okay.
No.
They were confused my scream for your scream, and it's like, no. She gonna have to go faster on her own. So with that said, we are going to jump into this discussion. Again, we love to have these bonus conversations. We can, if at any time you have questions or things that you would like for us to discuss whenever we have our upcoming bonus session, definitely let us know. You can go to storydeepdive.com and leave a comment with a question that you'd like for us to answer. But we were kind of shooting the breeze before the call and sort of thought about something that I believe we've talked about it, which is comps, which are comparable, if you will, novels that you can look at as a part of your reading, going wide in your reading and going deep in your reading, and talking about some specifics around so the types of books that you may select in order to be a comp, and also, what you get from that and why you would want to do that. And I'm sure as we're talking, we will kind of answer some gaps. I believe we have said it more than once, and I want to state it now just in case we haven't, but I think we have. This is a very vital part in both of our editing practices and our coaching practices. And we both have not just what we'll talk about generally today, but very specific, systematic, if you will, processes that we take our clients through. And I would like to say, and I think I'm right, that because we've been around each other for so long, we have borrowed, inspired, and sort of refined each of our individual processes, because I've done something with the client or she's done something with the client, and we've been like, I'm gonna try that next time. Yeah. And so now that I think that probably in the last year and a half, 2 years, both of us on this front has probably been really locked in and hasn't changed much. The change only comes based upon the author, but not based upon the approach. I think that is very secure. Yeah. So I say all this to say, we're something like pros. You know what I'm saying? So we're something like pros. You know what I'm saying? So this is something that I think is a very also near and dear to our hearts. And I think it helps to take some of the things that feels like very abstract advice, like read more, and makes it very practical. So, and before we kind of get into discussion, you can like tag team, piggyback anything as far as sort of like our runway into this topic that you want to add as a general comment before we talk about what our points are.
Yeah. You know, I really just want to kind of like re-emphasize, you know, things that you have said, because you pretty much covered all of it. But this really, you know, reading and getting comps and like, this really is a vitally important part of like of your writer lifestyle, right? Like this is a part of doing the writing thing. I have that in sort of like air quotes, but like this is really you know, being disconnected from your genre or from the industry, like it's really only going to hurt you, not help you. And a lot of writers who are like brand new into, you know, starting the process, I'll hear sometimes people saying, well, I don't want to read in my genre because I'm afraid I'm going to steal, or it's going to like, you know, sort of like mess up my creative, like where I'll end up like pulling from someone else's stuff or unconsciously sort of like copying or stuff like that. And there's like two big things I want to say about that. Number one, that's not as big of a problem as you would think. Like, and I'm saying that to anyone who's worried that it's going to make them unconsciously like copy. Because the thing is even if you took the exact same concept, like if you said, you know, one of my comps is Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn, and then you tried to rewrite Mistborn, you would wind up with your spin on Mistborn, right? Like that's the human creative engine. Like people are so individual that you're not going to just like, oh, I accidentally wrote Mistborn, right? But also, and I think the thing too is like getting exposed to other stories, it will raise questions for you that you didn't think to ask. And so rather than saying like, oh, what if I copied Brandon Sanderson's magic system, which I don't think anyone's going to, again, intentionally be like, I'm going to copy this, because you know that you're not supposed to do that. But then you start to ask questions about like, well, what if it worked this way instead? Or what if it was, right? And it starts to, like, it's going to feed your creativity, not hinder it. But also knowing what other people are doing in your genre, like it's almost like you're more likely to unconsciously accidentally copy something that already exists by not knowing it exists than you are by actually knowing it exists, right? So if you read in your genre and you're like, oh, this has been done before, then you can start to ask, well, what's my take on it? Like, what is like my version of this thing? And so it's really, not only is it good for your writing practice, it's good for your creativity, but you do want to be well versed in your genre. You do want to know what has been done before and find the gaps where you can fit in and say like, ooh, but nobody's asked this particular question or done it this particular way. So I just want to highlight kind of those two key things of like, it's really essential to your life as a writer, reading other authors and feeding your creativity and getting an understanding of your genre. And also like, it's not going to, it won't harm your creativity. It's only going to help your creativity. So I figured before we dive into anything else, I'd just like address those quickly, because I've heard that often. People like, what if I what if I copy? And it's like, you'll probably more likely accidentally copy by not knowing than by knowing.
Mm-hmm. I would say the final thing that I would maybe tag on to that, and I'm sure in some way we might like say it again while we're talking. I think there is something would be remiss if you were just doing and writing purely based on your own instinct. If you know you want to place that book in the marketplace, right? There's nothing wrong with writing what you want to write. Like that's what we all do. Like, welcome to the club. But there's something different if you say that you're doing that and you want it to be an experience between yourself and your readers.
Yeah.
And so being able to understand what that actually means and being clear about that, and then sitting back and saying, okay, like I was having a conversation with someone on LinkedIn and we were talking about, how much he loved Brandon Sanderson. And then, it just makes for a very interesting talk, because then when you have that conversation about it, first of all, y'all, number one, don't ever think Dana knows a lot about Brandon Sanderson. I know enough to probably butcher the conversation.
I showed up in my Mistborn sweater. Like, of all days, the Mistborn Christmas sweater is on.
I see it. But look, one of my closest friends in life knows everything about it. So I know a few things to hold a good conversation. But even in that conversation, I can talk about things that are very much on point because I do know.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing. It's like, do you know how to read the room? Do you understand what it is that readers are looking for?
Yeah.
And then being able to identify other books that can help to sort of round out your experience, then helps you to begin to take your concept and to sort of mold it into something that you'll enjoy writing and that readers will enjoy reading. And so I think, and so that's where this concept comes in. So what we're going to do, like always, we're going to talk about a few of the things that we would like to individually sort of bring to the conversation. And it sort of worked out really well that Rachel's sort of numbers will sort of lay the groundwork, and then mine will come in to sort of bridge them together or sort of solder them together. And I would say if this is ever something that you are would like to go into deeper, definitely reach out to us, because I think this is something that even though we can talk about this in general, it really is unique to the person and to the writer. And so we cannot emphasize that this, what we're talking about, is very broad, but when we are working with a client, it is very specific, and it makes it so that the time and the effort that you put into doing this work will pay in spades. It will pay off well for you. And so with that said, go ahead and tell us a few of the things that you would like for us to sort of chat about, where it concerns comps and reading within your genre.
Yeah, absolutely. So really what I'm going to be focusing on today is almost like the what of comps, right? Which are, what are the categories that I kind of put comps into, so that you can sort of identify what you're looking for in any individual book and what kinds of, the spread of books you might be looking to choose based on these categories. So you can think about, a comp can do any number of things for you. It might do all of the things, it might only do some of the things, but knowing those categories is going to help you identify what you're actually looking for in your comp. And so I sort of have it in about 4 categories to kind of break that down. So I'll talk through the categories, and that's kind of just giving you sort of the what of comps. What about you, Dana?
Okay. If you're discussing the what, I'm discussing pretty much the why, and the why, and kind of allowing us to slide a little bit into the benefits of that, of what both of us are saying. And so since we're being very general about it, let's go ahead and dive in, because doing the what before the why. But I will say this is a great time to sort of take some notes. And then when we get towards the end, maybe even stopping and identifying what your comps are, and whether you've looked at it through these 2 different lenses. And then, and we'll get it in. So go ahead, Rachel, and let's talk about your 4 categories as far as how you sort of see comps sort of classified, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to say just really quick before we start there, we're talking about comps sort of generally for comparable titles, and we're talking about them to start with almost more for your individual writing practice. But I will say, when you're looking at comps for your individual writing practice in any one of these 4 categories, they can, if you're looking to pitch traditional and you need to have comps for your query letter, you may be able to, you will very likely be able to pull comps from this list of your personal study, right? And so it's going to help you actually get really informed comps for your query letter, because doing something like picking an overly successful comp is sort of ill-advised, as far as if you're like, this is like, Harry Potter, and it's like, okay, well, that's a runaway success series, and you're looking for things that are like ultra specific. And so getting into these categories in depth can actually help you find those ultra specific comps. So we say comps generally for your writing practice, but you can pull comps from your writing practice and use those as your query letter comps. I just wanted to address if people were confused about that slight distinction. So anyway, the 4 categories that I break comps into are going to be style comps, plot comps, genre comps, and problem-specific comps. So when I talk about style comps are really exactly what they sound like. You're looking for authors whose style you like, that feels like it resonates with you, or that you sort of like want. It's the type of writing, and I'm talking about more at the line level, the type of writing that you want your book to sort of have. So think about the difference between, of course I'm going to be using stuff from my genres, but think about the difference between using Leigh Bardugo, right, who writes a lot of strong prose and exposition, writes longer stories with more sort of layers of detail and all of this sort of like world building, versus Gillian Flynn writing sharp objects, which is it's still extremely evocative, and actually still even teeters a little bit on language that feels like horror language. So she shares that in common with Leigh Bardugo, at least in this particular work, but it's much more efficient. She opts for very punchy, short descriptions that are evocative and quick. And so her book is shorter on the whole, and her prose is more concise. And so you're looking for, so that's when I say style comps, that's really what I mean. It's like looking for the kinds of styles that you want to emulate or that resonate the most with you. And so that's for more like your line writing. Now I separate out plot and genre comps because, so for example, I work in fantasy, and so, fantasy can cover all kinds of types of plots. So I like to kind of separate those out. So plot comps are going to be books that have a similar type of plot as your book. So I'm thinking a heist story, a journalist solving a crime, gosh, now I'm like blanking on any other type of plot, but you're looking at, or even something like a breaking and entering story, right? Which is similar to a heist, but not exactly, because breaking and entering would be more like, maybe more individual, where a heist story requires a team. And so when you're looking at types of plots, you're thinking about you're abstracting your story into the broad movement of the story. So this is a story, this is a chosen one story. This is right? So you might look at plot archetypes. You might even, again, look at just extracting the sort of abstract concepts, like plot concepts that you're doing. So not themes, but like plot concepts that you're working with, so that you can find stories that have done something similar. If you're looking at, Ninth House, for example, as a comp, you might be looking at, sort of an outsider inducted into a magical society. We have loads of types of stories like that. And so that helps you to look at how someone executed your particular type of plot. Well, it will not most likely will not look exactly like your story. So you're not going to find like a one-to-one, but you're looking for patterns in these types of stories that you can use to help you look at things like pacing, how the 4-act structure sort of plays out with this type of plot, the kinds of complications that, the protagonist encounters, those kinds of things to help you pace it and think about the rise and fall of the action. And so that's when I'm thinking about a plot comp, that's sort of what I'm looking at. When you're looking at genre comps, now you're looking at stories within your genre more broadly. So that's going to be a little bit easier, I think, when you're looking at genres that have sort of plot requirements. But even for fantasy, right, you're looking at, okay, what type of fantasy am I in? Am I in urban fantasy? Am I in high fantasy? Am I in magical realism, right? You're looking for your sort of like overarching, again, genre distinctions rather than plot specifics. Now, for something like crime or romance, that gets a little bit easier because now you're looking for, I'm looking for crime stories that, again, feature a journalist. I'm looking for crime stories that take place within the FBI. Those kinds of like very strong, I want to write a crime story. Okay, let me look at what are the requirements for a crime story. And generally you'll want to get a little more specific for, what cozy versus a murder mystery but you're looking for those general like genre placement comps. So like I said, I like to separate those two because genre and plot sometimes go right together and sometimes they'll diverge slightly. Again, when you're looking at something like fantasy in particular, or science fiction. And
I would even say romance it's similar too, because you have a lot of like subgenres. So that genre would just, it's almost as if it allows you to have some depth versus being broad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and then lastly, I like to invite writers to pick out problem-specific comps. These will probably come up as you're writing or in your plotting process, where you're like, I'm struggling with a particular issue. I don't know how to crack something. So like, I'm struggling with my characters. So then you go looking for stories. These may be inside or outside of your genre. You're really looking for, if you can find something inside your genre, great, but it doesn't hurt to, again, travel outside your genre for inspiration. We're huge on that here. But this is about finding books that do well, something that you're either struggling with or something that you're trying to strengthen in your writing. So if your characters feel like they're a little nondescript, you're looking for stories with really strong, really memorable characters. If you're struggling with balancing continuity problems, right? You're going to be looking for books that, handle or like juggle multiple plot threads really well, or deal with dual timelines, right? Whatever thing you're trying to crack in your writing, or if there's something you're really trying to improve upon, finding books that do those things well. And here's the thing about, when you're looking for comps, it's going to be some trial and error. There may be some books that that you have already read that you're like, ooh, this book, right, is going to tell me this thing, and I definitely want to use it. And you're going to read some ones that were like, that was not really what I was looking for. And it doesn't mean you didn't walk away with anything. It's just, it wasn't what you were like. You have to read, and you have to take a gamble on the read when you're pulling out something new and hoping that it's going to give you what you're looking for. So getting those problem specific ones are really for sort of like spot treating issues or like ultra specific things that you are trying to, again, improve or develop in your story. And those kind of fall sometimes like slightly outside of what the other comps might do, because those might be more likely to be outside your genre and that kind of thing. But so those are the 4 categories that I use. So that way, when you're looking for books, you know what you want that book to do for you. You know what information you want that book to tell you. It may tell you all kinds of other information, but it helps you be very targeted in your search and in your reading of, this is what I'm coming to this book for. So it helps you feel very equipped going into it versus sort of just picking out books and reading them at random and not really knowing if you got what you came for.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about this is the fact that if you're already a reader, it can be very helpful for you to classify if that book is something that falls under one of those categories. Yep. Because a lot of times you're not going to get as much from it the first time around, right? So if you can select a book that you've already spent time with and you've already read it, like there's very little that's going to surprise you as far as the overarching like story that's happening, but that you can actually dig in because you already know what's going on, and then identifying, where they fall in that sort of spectrum, so that if you need to reach for it again, then I always see it as being you having a shelf full of like the best mentors you could ever have on your writing journey. And it's because you've selected the right comps. Another thing about the classification, I would say, is that I think being mindful of when you choose to select one of the classifications, like let's say problem versus maybe genre, because you're trying to get the lay of the land, versus problem, like you may be already about to write, or you're already plotting, or you're already in the ideation process, and you need to see this sort of element on the page worked out. And so it's, so it's both like of this thing of what you're selecting and why you're selecting it.
Yeah, and I want to like pop in there really quick and also just mention too, it helps you to let go of certain things that maybe are either not your preference or that an author does in a way that you don't care for. So if you're looking at like a certain kind of book for genre specifics, then if you like the line writing, awesome, that's great. But if the line writing feels like it doesn't really do it for you, it's not your preferred style, you can actually kind of let that go. It's good to note those things, right? If like, oh, I don't care for this style. Like I have a client who, I needed her to see the pacing for something specifically, even though I knew that like, look, I know that this line writing is not the kind of writing you want to do. Like set that aside because I need you to pay attention to the functional elements of the plot. And so it can help you not trip up over things that you maybe don't care for as much about books because you're not there for that particular thing. And again, when you find stuff you don't like, it helps you to be like, oh, I don't care for this thing. And that's good information as well. And so it just helps you also know what stuff in a book you can let go of or not worry about because you're there for a very specific purpose.
I agree. And I think the other part about this is like it helps you to really amass. And this is why, as far as reading selections, to be able to help you go through your journey. And this is why you hear all the time, like you want to read a lot. But this is a way to take that general advice and make it specific, because it may be in one of these categories or to address a particular thing. Or I know a lot of times, I have clients where we're reading because they're still trying to figure it out. They know they want to do romance, but that's just like saying, I'm going to the grocery store because I want to get food.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what do you want? Like, you got to be a lot more specific than that. And so it's very helpful. So I love that. So your categories of genre, plot, style, and problem. And there are others. And you may find that there are areas, and I think that problem one is a really good catch bucket. Because it could be, you want to look at magic systems, or you want to look at, steamy versus sweet, or you want to begin to sort of look at how it sort of unfolds on the page, and whether that's what you're looking for. So those are great. Okay, so now that we sort of talked a little bit about the what, I sort of was thinking about the why, selecting those, and in Danger Tales, we have 3 very specific types, but it could be in any one of those categories, but we have 3 specific types, and primarily because we're also always aiming not to just have that sort of understanding, but also to understand how do they play well in the marketplace.
Yep.
Right? To be able to help you to understand, especially if you've never written, or you've written a book and it just didn't do that well. You thought it was a great book. 3, 4 people thought it was a great book, but did hundreds, did thousands, right? And so one of the things that making these selections and reading in this capacity does is it helps you to understand, like, know your shelf that you're on. Listen, me saying shelf is dating me already, okay? Because we used to say, go to your local bookstore, find the shelf, and look at who's to the left and the right of like where your book would be. But to know your shelf, who are those best-selling authors? What are some of those themes? What are some of those trends? What are some of those tropes? What are some of the character archetypes that you see a lot of? And understanding your marketplace through like the shelf that your work would be on, or the shelf that you would like for your work to be on.
Yeah.
so that you'll know your shelf. The other thing is that you will know the genre flow. I am very adamant about a 4-act structure. I work with people that do all sorts of, listen, I've heard 8, I've heard 5, I've heard 3. Listen, I do not have an MFA. It is exactly. It to me, it just seems like people just be making some stuff up.
Random numbers. Listen, 257 beats, 7 sequences, like you just everything.
Listen, I had one student say, "Yeah, I figured out. I took your handouts and I figured out that I had 27." I'm like, listen, you know what? Do you, boo? But to understand genre flow, that we all may be thinking about a 4-act structure, but based on your genre and then based upon your niche, and for romance based on your subgenres, that flow can look totally different.
Yep.
Even though structurally it's still 4 acts, and we're moving through it.
Yeah.
So reading your comps and reading within your genre and looking at the different types can help you with identifying, like, what is that genre flow like? What is it helping to identify? Like, what are the reader expectations as far as how the story moves? And some of these things that you talked about, for example, the style may make some adjustments to it, but there are going to be some things that you're going to find that are just facts.
Yeah.
And what I find is some people will skip this. They will skip it, especially if there's someone that they read a lot in the genre, because the problem then can become you are familiar with your genre, but you've never thought about your genre in a sense of what are the elements that are necessary to bring about that feeling.
Yeah.
What are the elements that are necessary to cause that sort of movement in a story, that cause that type of transformation? And so you're looking at it, and you can look at that and sort of identify it and sort of nail it down based upon your comps.
Yeah.
Comps and working, right? Getting in there and doing the work. So you'll know your genre flow. The other thing, which piggybacks on the other two, where you fit in your market.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the shelf. I know I want to be on this shelf. Okay, this is listen, because Brandon Sanderson keeps coming. Brandon Sanderson, or in my world, Kennedy Ryan or Anna Wang, or what, you understand what they're bringing to the table and what they've done sort of to that sub niche or that subgenre, and now you can say, well, this is where I fit in.
Yeah.
Right? You may say, well, I do magic, but I do soft magic, and I have a female protagonist, but she's young adult. And, my setting isn't contemporary, but it is historical or whatever.
Yeah.
All of those choices begin to not just say, here is my shelf, here is my genre, but here is where I am.
Yeah.
And this is how I sort of interact within that space. And this is where you can find yourself needing to go through a lot of comps.
Yeah.
People think when I say, no, find another one. Listen, people be getting salty. They get attitudes. And you know me, I'm the please don't come for me unless I send you type. Okay? So I would say, don't get upset.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
It's
knowing
just part
that
of the process.
You may read a lot.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. When you get some good ones, baby, they will serve you and serve you well. So you want to know, like, how do you fit into your market, and to be able to articulate that, right? Yeah. I will never forget. Listen, y'all. I think I always make it seem that I am a real reader, for real. Some of the stuff, listen, they don't know parts, and I'm learning to not say it aloud because people think I don't read, because I read a lot. I just read what I like.
Who in the world is thinking that you don't read?
Because I don't want no dusty books.
Oh.
I don't want no...
Okay, listen, but ask Dana how many romance novels she's read in a year, which is, by the way, your genre, your niche, and what you teach people. Like, if you don't read 200 romance novels in a year, I mean, you're
I probably
falling behind, right?
Like, listen, because I'm always, oh my God, except for these ones that's really, because I'm like, I'm in fifth, girl, I'm reading 4th week, then I got to go to our next book pick. But when you're doing this, all of this is like, you may find that you are reading a lot, and that you really have to be selective. And this is one of those times where giving up too soon can really mess you up. And you just have to be very, very patient with yourself, right? Because a lot of times when you go from being a casual reader to be just a fan of reading to reading because you are aiming to shape something and really allow your mind to wrap itself around the type of stories that you want to tell, that's a different type of reading.
Yes.
And it can cause you to pick different books. It can cause you to have to slow down. It can cause you to have to take better notes. It can cause you to see nuances in the storytelling approach that you've never seen before. But it also means with each one of those iterations, it can also give you so much clarity. It makes me think about like whenever you go to the optometrist and it's like 1 or 2, all right, 1 or 3, and you're like, wait, they all look the same, but they're not, right? And it's sort of like we're clicking that. I love the clicking sound. I don't like the process, but it's like, okay, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 2 or 4, 2 or 4. This is what we're doing. We're fine tuning until we get the prescription.
Yeah.
Okay, come on.
For your book.
Come on, let's go. And so it means that, you know, in order for you to really be able to figure out where you fit in your marketplace, you really want to look at these and begin to identify what are the options in this particular element and where do I send, like for my magic, for my setting, for my cast of characters, right? You saying it's a heist versus it is like a cozy that just has a larger cast in general. Those are 2 different type of cast dynamics. And someone trying to learn how to build a cast for a cozy or a cozy mystery is different than you doing like me a series in a romance. I may have a nice sized cast, but what I'm doing with that cast is a little bit different than what I'm doing in a cozy, right? Because that cast is almost like the cast and the environment are almost interchangeable, right? And they do some very unique and specific in that world, right? And so understanding it helps you to know like where you fit in with your market. And the final thing that I put sort of as a bonus, and it sort of plays off of the last element, which is that you'll begin to know your brand as you begin to do this reading and to do this sort of thought work, like really thinking about it and thinking about the stories and where you stand. You really can begin to shape and craft your sort of story promise. The story, your brand promise that you want readers, so you know the type of readers. You know, if you have, if I have readers that do not like explicit, right, intimate scenes, then this is not the brand for you, right? And me being very clear about that helps them to be very clear about what they want, right? Or they may know that, hey, this may be slow burn, but when it turns on, it's getting hot in here. It's a very specific reader. And I think in having that clarity that you can articulate for yourself, it makes it even better for your readers and your reader experience. And I said this was a bonus, but knowing your brand is also then how it bleeds over into how you engage your market and how you sell in your market and how you go from being casual readers to fans. And so having this sort of dance between, you know, knowing that you need comps and not just grabbing anything because it's what's popular, but being very specific about why you're selecting it and what you aim to glean from that. And then also then what do I do with the information now that I have it? And so I would say when you think about your I kind of wrote them down as a tier. You said it one and I put it in a different order. Do you like for people to look at them in a particular progression, or do you find that they only are picking based upon what the need is, and those may be some of the needs that they have?
You know, it depends pretty heavily on the writer. I find that it depends, like, because I think, especially if I'm dealing with, so if I'm dealing particularly with newer writers who are still trying to position themselves, we will tend to start with genre and plot, right? These are much bigger issues because they're working their outline, they're trying to figure out the flow of their story. Now, if they haven't written a first draft yet, we're also taking that with a grain of salt, right? Because once they get into their first draft, they discover the truth of the story. And so normally we'll start overarching with plot and genre. For more experienced writers, we may shift more quickly into plot specific because they're looking to achieve something specific in their genre, depending on how long we've worked together, how much they've worked in their genre, those kinds of things. And then we'll shift into style once we're moving toward that second draft kind of phase. And then because problem specific is such a huge catch-all, we will do those depending on what the problems are. So, for example, if they were going to do a dual timeline, we would be looking at dual timeline probably during the outline phase to so that particularly, we know they're not going to crack it right off the bat in their first draft, but at least so they're not lost in their first draft, we're starting to build up some reps with dual timeline to help them achieve that effect. And then we'll probably go back to those for refining in that second draft. Versus if, they're having a problem with a certain more specific aspect of the story that might happen after the first draft, where they're like, okay, I know what the story is, but I'm not cracking my characters, or the magic, I'm having a hard time not info dumping. Then we'll look at, you know what I mean? So the problem specific ones will kind of happen depending on what type of problem it is and where that problem sort of fits in the process, which is kind of the nice thing about working with an editor, right? It's an editor can also help you not just find books, but help you identify no, we're not worried about that yet. But we need to work here, so that you're not just sort of because there's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of problems to solve. There's a lot of stuff you could be doing, but probably only 1-2 things max that you should be doing right now. Mm-hmm. So that's usually how that'll go, but that will be kind of finessed author to author. And sometimes when we're doing plot and genre study, we will earmark certain books for style, where it's ooh, right. Okay, you really like this style. You like the efficiency of this person's writing. So we're going to keep that in mind, that this is maybe where you're aiming versus some of the, so that also allows us to, when you start broad with that plot and genre stuff, it means that you kind of along the way may very well pick up some style and problem specific comps to return to as well, which is always good.
And I want to touch on something. I totally agree. Something that you said in passing, it's that's where working with a book coach can be helpful. And I don't know that every book coach does this. This is something that we've just worked through over time. And I know for me, it's just how I got better, and you just sort of codifying right of what you do. But that's where working with someone that works in your specific niche is so helpful, right? Because there are times when you are working with a book coach and it's generally, and it's in a sense of how well you work with that person. Mm-hmm. But what we're talking about here is really about how well you work with that subject matter or that genre or that niche. And so that is another thing that can really help, because you're doing the work that you could do on your own, but you're also getting the insight and the know-how of someone who's sort of walked with several authors or plus through the process, but also can help you to see what you're seeing. Yeah. Because you may not know yet. Now, some people come in, they've read a lot of stuff and they see themselves. Sorry, Brandon Sanderson. We just keep throwing you into this conversation. You see themselves as a Brandon Sanderson and you're like, well, actually, you're not there yet. Let's go right over here. And it's not bad, but I think sometimes it's just that clarity, because they're so close to it that they don't realize. And what we're doing is helping them get a realistic understanding of where they are. And then what are some of the things that we need to do, that if that's the lane that you want to be in, or that's the one that you want to be adjacent to, what are some of the things that we can focus on over your next 2, 3, 4, 5 projects? Yeah. That will be helping you to incrementally grow in your skill set. Yeah. To get you there. And so by the time you've done a complete series or the complete trilogy or whatever, you are going to be a well-seasoned pro, right? Yeah. And so that, I think that's what makes it very, very, very helpful and hopeful. I would like to know if there's any other things that when people are thinking about comps that you would say, whether they're red flags or things to keep in mind about this topic, or even maybe misconceptions that we should touch on?
That's a good question. So I want to pull out something that you said. We touched on it earlier, but I think it's really, really important because you mentioned one of the things you talked about is people get really frustrated with this process. And like the process can be frustrating. And I think it's important for people to know that like the first book you pull out may not be the winner. It probably won't be like,
It rarely is. Rarely.
Yes. And so, because one of the things you mentioned was like when you start moving from casual reader to intentional reading for your craft, you said specifically you might need to slow down. And that's both in the reading process and in the research process. So like you may very well, and I say this as someone who has done a lot of this. I have spent a lot of time Googling, looking at lists, looking on Amazon, looking at reviews, like having to peel back the layers, first of all, to find the title, and then to attempt to vet the title. And sometimes I vet the title, and it's still not the thing that I was looking for. But again, now, like even if you read a book that like wasn't the title, all of a sudden you have this book in your repertoire, though. And so you can take things from it still, and you never know when you're going to need that book. So like, I picked out a book for one of my clients, and it turned out that like I wasn't expecting it to have as like big of a cast and being like super multi POV. That was like, oh my god, this is a huge undertaking that they did. And so it wasn't quite the right book for that client. And we read it together and we were like, well, whoops, that wasn't the thing that we were looking for. But honestly, like number one, on the other side, like this client actually does have multiple POVs that he can utilize that book for to like understand, ooh, here's how you can, give that sense of chess pieces moving on a board and you're waiting for them to collide. But then also now he has in his repertoire and I have in mine, if someone is looking to do a story like this, now I have that book. Now I know where to point someone. And even again, if you read a book you hate, then we're looking at like, well, what are the pitfalls? What are the things that this author did that I didn't like that I would definitely not like to do? Because even if you don't like something, you can still do it on accident, right? Like you can sort of unknowingly fall into a pitfall. And so being aware that, talking about slowing down is talking about reading the work and going back through the work, but also the process of finding it. It takes time, and it's like, sometimes it's thrilling when you find that book, and sometimes it's a slog when you're just Googling and you're like digging through titles and you're looking at reviews and you're like, I will often be on Reddit threads and I'm just scrolling thread after thread after thread looking for titles, which by the way, Reddit can actually be super helpful because it's like people are looking for book recommendations of like, I am looking for a book like this book. And you're like, ooh, I am also looking for a book like this book, and you start kind of trolling the lists, and then, but you got to take that list, you got to start Googling, you got to be like, is this anywhere close? Is this anywhere close? And you have to keep doing that kind of round and round. And so it's just, on all sides, this process takes time, but it's extremely worth it, and it's vital to the process, I think.
It is, and you just can't overestimate that. I have a couple of clients vividly in my mind because I will say this. I am the coach that if you're working with me, we are doing this so that you are identifying areas where you can be profitable at.
Yeah.
Where you are going to write a book and know that if you do the work and get traction, the likelihood that you'll have a profitable business within 1 to 3 years is highly probable.
Yeah.
That's not picking any and everything. And there's so many things that people want to do in their story that the reason why you cannot find it is because they could not sell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's call a thing a thing. So therefore, a lot of times when you're doing that, it can get frustrating. Yeah. It can seem like, what, I've read 100 books. Well, then maybe you got to read 200.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Now working with in someone that is in the niche, we can sort of narrow it down pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Right, because I do a lot of romance, I can narrow it down. Like, okay, start here. Like, you just tell me and I could send you a couple places. But usually what I find more than anything that I like to see, even if it doesn't give you all the answers, it can give you a lot of the things that you don't want.
Yeah.
And begin to sort of parse that out. Because that really does become a very strong foundation of like what you want. and how you want to move forward. And so when we're saying this, like, we could talk about it forever. Like, when you're thinking about this, it really isn't just this go grab 3 comps like you hear all the time.
Yeah.
It really isn't as generic and just open-ended as that, even though it could be. Now, if you don't have a lot of time, you don't want it to be that way.
Yeah.
You do want to be intentional about the selection, whether it's the type of comp or whether you're trying to glean a specific outcome with that information. The last thing that I would say to this is I would not ever, if you, for example, you are saying, okay, I'm trying to figure out where I am on the shelf. I'm going to be looking at genre, style comps. Don't settle on 1. Don't settle, leave it on 2.
Yeah.
You want at least 3 to 5. Right? So you could begin to see it, figure out what's the norm.
Yes.
What's an outlier? What is just, this is her thing.
Yeah.
And this is his thing, not an everybody thing. Right?
Yeah,
and that's where it can become a lot of fun. But again, it becomes work.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is why, well, I'm saying I'm being very generous with the we. This is why we love writing, right? This is why we love reading.
So we get to read more books. Like, oh no, I have an excuse to read more books.
Listen.
Darn, it's like, so kind of counterbalancing that, like, yes, it can be hard work, but also, like, we love to read. So, like, it's not the worst thing in the world that it's like, oh no, I gotta read a few more books. Rats, like, that's what I wanted to do all day anyway,
But, like, please sign me up 2 times. I would take that over everything else. Okay. So I think this has been very, very fruitful. I would say the final thing, Rachel, are there any other things that kind of rise to the top for you that you would like to end on before we close out this discussion? And then I'll bring my couple before we call it a wrap.
Yeah, I just actually want to just point everyone back to Dana's discussion of where you fit on the shelf and your genre and how you fit in your market. Because at the very beginning of this conversation, I said, now we're talking about your writer kind of growth comps, knowing that from these may also come if you're looking traditionally published and you're doing a query letter, may also give you some query prompts or some query letter comps. I mean, what Dana was talking about when it, like, if that is something you are looking for, if that's something you're aiming to do, revisit what Dana talked about, where you should fit, where you fit on the shelf, how you fit in your market, what your brand is, like, because that's really, like, that particular facet of the conversation is where you're going to pull your query comps from, because that's the information that a literary agent is looking for. Where do you fit in the market? Why do you think your book is going to sell? Who are you like? Who has done well? And how are you also differentiating yourself? So you haven't just rewritten Mistborn, you've done this thing, right? And so particularly, Dana, your conversation about why you pick comps and sort of part of the way that you use them and approach them, that's really going to help you, like, framing it in those terms is going to help you when it comes to picking your query letter comps. I don't know why I keep saying prompts. Query letter comps as well. Like, that's a great framing for that, of, like, where do you fit on the shelf? Who are you like? Who are you not like? These kinds of things. So I just wanted to, since we started with that distinction, just want to draw people's attention back to, like, rewind to that if that's something you're looking for.
Yeah, and I would say with that, I think that it can give you a level of confidence when you know that and you can articulate it.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to write a thing that you can't even articulate. Like, if can't explain it.
And it'll show in your query letter. Like, an agent will pick up like that on, if you're not clear about your plot and your like, they're gonna spot it from a mile away.
But also readers will. That's why they can spot it. So whether if you're writing because you want to self-publish or whether you're writing because you want to pitch, at the end of the day, the process is a similar process. That's just, we're talking about, that's on the outcome on the other end of the spectrum. So I would say, being able to identify and being able to articulate what it is that you're writing, who it is for, what elements of your story actually lend itself towards those aspects, and why readers would love it, right? What makes it your unique sort of spin on it and take on it, how you're giving them more of what they want but different, right? It just makes so that you just give yourself more options, and you also give yourself the opportunity to sort of go to the page with a sense of clarity of what you would like to accomplish during that time. So I would say that this could be something that happens over time while you're writing, while you're working on other projects, that you just have a TBR list that you are constantly working on, or you're continuing to glean from. Or you may be like, I think, y'all, I love watching and listening to YouTube videos while I work. And I love this new trend that's coming, I think, from TikTok right now, which is like creating a personal curriculum. And you've created this personal curriculum for yourself of like, I want to study magic systems. Or I want to study a character transformation. Or I want to study anti-heroes. Right. And what it can do is, all the while you are just refining your mind's ability to see, and then to begin to interpret, okay, what's happening, and then to be able to help your writer self begin to translate that into how you express yourself in your stories. And so all of it can go somewhere, even if it means you got to keep finding the ones you can learn from and glean from. Just think about this podcast. Right. Again, if you are new here, welcome. We're so glad to have you. What's up? If you are returning, listen, we appreciate you and we love you for returning. We hope you will rate and leave a comment. We just want to get you to level up your commitment. You know what I'm saying? And so this conversation that we have on this bonus session is for all of you, whether you are new or old, whether you're a new writer or a seasoned writer. I don't think you will ever get away from this. Not if you want to keep getting better and getting better in a progression and scale that is reasonable for you. And it makes you feel good about the stories that you write. And so if any part of this is something that is new to you, go ahead and let your girls know. Go to the comment section, ask a question, add a comment or a thought. If this is something that you would like for us to explore more, definitely let us know. I think our podcast in general is proof that you can have these different types of books, because you may identify a different aspect of each one of those that can lend itself to being a comp for your writing process or your writing progression. And I hope that you will continue to stick around and see more of what we got going on. And so we announced our next reading selection, which it's only fitting that Rachel has on her Brandon Sanderson like Christmas sweater.
One of my favorite things that I own. I live on the frickin' Gulf Coast. I do not need a sweater this thick. Now, I bought it before we moved to the Gulf Coast, but I bought it shortly before we moved, not knowing that we were moving. I have no business owning a sweater that's built for Utah winters, but daggone it, we're broaching into the holiday season. Mistborn is our January pick, and I'm feeling festive, and so the holiday sweater comes out. Never mind that it's 80 degrees outside my window right now.
Listen, I was going to ask that because I know where you live, but I was like, you know what? I'm over here drinking my water, minding my business. I'm not gonna. Listen, you want to wear your Brandon Sanderson? You wear it, okay? You wear it. But yes, as y'all can see, it's a Rachel pick because she's super excited and she's already pumped. Oh my gosh. So that's what we will be reading in January. And if you are here during the month of November, when we publish this, we'll have some special episodes that are coming up in the month of December. So if you want to learn more about what we're reading, make any recommendations, visit us online at storydeepdive.com. We really appreciate you. You can leave your reviews, comment, etc. And we're looking forward to that. Is there anything else you want to throw in there before we get ready to bounce, Rachel?
No, ma'am. Get ready. We're going to have some fun episodes for December. They're going to be a little shorter episodes, just recapping the year, but still going to be full of lots and lots of good takeaways to send you off and get you ready for the new year. So excited for those episodes coming up. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and do all the things.
Yep.
Check.
Let's do it. Let's go. So with that said, we are out. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. And as always, happy writing. Goodbye.